Hey everyone, and welcome. Today we are going to do something a little different. We're going to take a trip back in time, way back, to the dawn of the personal computer. We're going to explore the language they spoke long before we had all the fancy icons and windows we're used to now. So just imagine for a second, no icons to click, no start menu, not even a mouse. All you have is a black screen with a little blinking line. How in the world did you actually tell the computer what to do? That's the puzzle we're going to solve today. So yeah, first up, let's dive into that world, the world before the mouse was king, the world that was run completely from the keyboard. So how did people actually get anything done? Well, the answer was something called DOS. That stands for Disk Operating System. And it was a command line operating system, which is just a fancy way of saying you had a direct conversation with the computer by typing. No pointing and clicking, just you and the keyboard. You know, the whole idea was actually beautiful in its simplicity. You type a command, and the computer does it. Period. Hitting that enter key was like giving a direct order. This was how you managed absolutely everything, your files, your programs, the whole shebang. All right, so let's really put ourselves in that seat. Let's imagine we just sat down at a DOS computer for the very first time. The machine boots up, and this is what you get. Welcome to the command prompt, my friend. So you're staring at that blinking cursor, and the first, most obvious question that pops into your head is, okay, what's actually on this thing? You know, where am I? What files are even in here? And for that, thankfully, there was a simple and really powerful command, dir, or dir. You can think of it as your eyes. You just type dir, you hit enter, and boom, the computer tells you everything that's in your current location. All the files, all the folders, right there on the screen. Now, dir was what you'd call an internal command. It was one of the absolute basics that was just built right in. You also had other ones like ver to check what version of DOS you were running, or my personal favorite, cls, which just wiped the screen clean for a fresh start. Think of these as your essential little housekeeping tools. Okay, so now you can see what's around you. What's the next logical step? Well, you're going to want to start moving around, creating your own spaces, and, getting organized. Let's say you want a new, clean place to put your work. Today, you just right-click and hit New Folder. In the world of DOS, you were making a new directory. Same idea, just a different name. And the command for it was so wonderfully direct. MD, which just stands for Make Directory, you type something like MD Work, hit Enter, and poof. Just like that, you had a brand new digital folder ready to go. And this was all part of a neat little family of commands. After you made a directory with MD, you could jump into it using CD for Change Directory. And when you were all done with it and wanted to clean up, you could get rid of it with RD for Remove Directory. It was a whole system for building your digital world. So you can see where you are, and you can create different spaces to work in. But now for the really important part, actually managing the files themselves. Let's just walk through what a normal little workflow might look like. First, you'd make a directory, let's call it work. Then you'd change into that directory. Next, you'd copy an important file, like your notes, into it. And finally, you'd probably run a quick dir command just to confirm, yep, it's there. You see how these commands start to string together like a sentence? These file management commands were basically your digital hands. You could copy a file to make a duplicate, move it to a new home, ren to rename it, and of course, del to delete it. They were all just simple, powerful verbs for interacting with all of your data. And this right here is what's so cool. This is where it all connects. Every time you double-click a folder on your computer today, you're essentially just running the cd or change directory command. When you drag a file to make a backup, that's just a fancy way of doing copy. Creating a new folder? That's MD. And hitting the delete key? Well, that's del. The actions haven't changed at all, just the way we do them. So why are we looking back at all this old stuff? What's the point? Well, because when you understand the foundation, the whole building that's sitting on top of it suddenly makes a lot more sense. And here's the real takeaway. These commands weren't just random letters you typed on a screen. They were the actual ideas, the logic of how to create, move, and organize information in a digital space. And that fundamental logic, it hasn't changed one bit. It still powers every single computer, tablet, and smartphone we use right this second. So, to really sum it all up, DOS commands were all about managing your digital world, your files and your directories. But they are so much more than a history lesson. They are the absolute bedrock of how we think about computers today. Learning them is like learning the alphabet before you try to read a book. It's that foundational.
And that leaves us with a pretty interesting question to think about, doesn't it? Yeah, the language has totally changed. We click and tap and swipe now instead of typing commands. But have the core ideas, the fundamental actions of how we command our technology, have they really evolved all that much? Something to chew on. Thanks for joining me